Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Black Mental Health Matters. Our mission here is to encourage open dialogue around mental health among Black communities. And today is a very special episode, and we're celebrating our 3 years anniversary since the Black Mental Health Matters show first aired on June 30th, 2020. Now, I'm your host, Amanda Eke, and today we have some very special guests with us discussing social media and cognitive overload. Now, understanding the impact on mental well-being. Stay tuned. All right, so I hope everyone is doing well today. Now we have some more guests, but here are our guests thus far. Thank you both for joining us. Now we'll start with Dr. Kimya, Dr. Dennis. We'll start with you, and then we'll go around and we'll introduce ourselves. So, Dr. Dennis, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work.
Thank you for welcoming me. I'm Kimya Nuru Dennis. I am a community advocate, sociologist, and criminologist. I am in USA, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia, a descendant of enslaved Africans. And I specialize in African/Black physical health, disabilities, mental health, suicidology, schools in terms of school materials, and economic systems and workforce development. And I'm also an educator and a qualitative researcher. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Dennis. Dante, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, certainly. So first and foremost, really excited just to be here as you all celebrate 3 years of really spreading the message around mental health. My name is Dontay Williams. I am the founder and president of Mental Health on Purpose. I'm also a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. Really priding ourselves on being a part of the global conversation around mental health. And today we're going to talk a little bit about social media and its influence. So really excited to be a part of the program and look forward to a spirited conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ayomide, can you please introduce yourself next? Thank you so much for joining us. All right, looks like we may be having some technical difficulties. Let's see here.
Can you hear me?
Go
Hello,
ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right. Thank you. Good afternoon. Hey, back again. My name is Oluwagbenga, and been very working with Ayomide since one. Do not be active member. But here I am, just entered as a friend, writing and also microbiologist. So yeah, I believe from different things you can add our knowledge to this topic when it comes to thank you.
All right, so we will do. There's some technical connections, but we will see if she can join us back again. But anyway, let's progress forward a bit. Again, thank you all so much, guests. We really enjoy. We're really looking forward to your expertise that you'll be bringing to the panel. Now, first and foremost, I want to know what has been your experience with social media? Is it been a tool for marketing for you, a tool for friendship and connection, a tool to spread your message? What has been your usage of social media, period? We can start with you, Dr. Dennis.
Don't always start with me. Okay. I don't consider social media. I don't consider social media really social networking. I know that's what people keep saying. I think it's really the biggest procrastinator. There are times where it sends out some good information, but I think that the overall impact is negative in societies and cultures that have too much access to all of this. And we can discuss that more.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough. All right, Doctor.
yeah, so I'll tell you that in preparation, I think for this conversation, the first thing that really went back to mind for me was my old MySpace account. Now, I was in the era where, MySpace was becoming alive and it was exciting. I had to go back, see if I could log in, remove some stuff. But yeah, social media has played, I think, a really big role, particularly in my life, right being at that cusp where you really start to see it taken off back in 2005. I think they said only about 5% of individuals were actually on social media, whereas now today it's about 72%. So it's very much have become a prevalent aspect of life and everyday aspects. So, using it from marketing to connecting to checking in on the people that you
Absolutely,
want to
absolutely.
yeah. So so yeah, it's played a big influence, I think personally in my life, and I look forward to hearing Dr. Dennis also in the research that she's doing around that. So
I just
Absolutely,
want to say I'm not
absolutely,
doing
Dante.
research
Thanks
on
so
social
much. All right,
media.
now we
Okay. Okay.
okay.
Yes. Hi.
not doing research on social media. Thanks so much. All right, now we're having again. All right, so we have another guest joining us, Dr. Mitchell, founder of Learning Minds Consultant. Dr. Mitchell, can you hear me? Is everything clear? All right, Dr. Mitchell, if you'd like to unmute yourself and please introduce yourself to the program, we'd love to find out more about you.
Hi, top of the morning, top of the afternoon. I'm so glad to be here and just really talk this matter out. I have a lot of um, insight that I would like to share. I'm from the US on the East Coast, and I'm an entrepreneur, educator, and also a certified business mentor. So I do a lot of mentoring, not only in business, but for our young people as well, getting through the pandemic with their education.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell. Now, just a reminder, everyone, if you have any TV going on in the background, please do turn it off, as well as for the guests, if you have anything in the background, please do turn off. And if you're not speaking, please do remember to mute your mic. Now, you know what? This is such an interesting conversation. You all come at it from different states. We have Mr. MySpace over there. We come from it from maybe different statuses and different time periods of social media. For you all, I mean, how have you seen social media progress in terms of a timeline from when you were young to now, and how much it's really affected a lot of our culture? We'll start with you, Dr. Mitchell.
Sure. I don't want to age myself, but we started out with MySpace, right? MySpace was live. And then my Latino, my gente space was as well. And I would say that it definitely has changed. And being that I used to do a lot of marketing, consulting, and PR, being on some of the platforms of TBN, I would certainly support my clients with that. And social media was a prime tool for small businesses. I would say now it's like the fabric of everyone's day-to-day wake up call, I would say. And that would be my experience, now to like Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well.
Absolutely. Now, Dontay, you tell us a little bit about how you've seen that trajectory from just your specific point of view, from where you are, where you saw social media begin when you were in childhood / adolescence to where it is now. What does that timeline look for you, and how much change it's done to culture?
Yeah, certainly. I think similar to what Dr. Mitchell was saying, it's really become an integrated aspect of everyday life, right? If you allow it to be, I'll say that. But really, I've seen its growth in production, again, going back to the original days of MySpace to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, right? We can go for days talking about the various platforms. But I agree. I think one operating in the space of mental health and counseling, it's important that we have an understanding of the impact and how much it has grown. The Surgeon General recently came out and just talked about some of the negative impacts that we're seeing from social media. And so it's a conversation that is necessary. And if it's not impacting us directly, it's doing so in other ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Dr. Dennis, for you, I mean, just from your practice, I mean, how do you see kind of mental health really from now, where you look at from where things started to where we are now? Undoubtedly, social media is integrated in every part of our lives. No question. I mean, it's everywhere that you go. You're supposed to promote yourself, sell yourself on social media. It's like the new business card, I've heard people say. How do you think that's really, just on a basis line, how do you think that has affected just society's mental health, just on a basis line?
That's the downfall of humans, and that's around the world. And I'm almost 50 years old. So those of us who were grown folks before any of this stuff existed, know, I mean, there's decades of research on this now, but we also know from experience how humans in societies and cultures that have this access to social media after we were grown, because a lot of us were in our 20s or 30s, 40s, or older than that before this stuff existed, how people became to the point where they could not converse with each other. Now, there's a difference between societies and cultures where people do not have internet access for government reasons, for technology reasons, and then you have governments that are allowing people to have more and more access to be successful in schools, and whatever the case may be, it's profit margin as well. There's also good to get people more access to health resources. So that's been a real benefit. People with health conditions, disabilities, physical disabilities, and mental disabilities as well. People who cannot leave their homes have had access to resources. But the problem with humans, and that's since the origins of humans for over 1 million years, is humans never know balance. And that's every new technology since the origins of humans. And so internet, social media is not based on balance. It's based on bringing people in, people not knowing facts, and we're talking about our people, African/racially Black people around the world, who oftentimes we're told falsely that hundreds of thousands of years of African cultures and collectives are spoken word and dance and music, but we're oftentimes, unfortunately, not taught about our people's sciences, mathematics, literatures that connect to art, but teaching, the original schools and so forth. So therefore, when you give our people, I'm mostly concerned and focused on our people at all times. So when you give our people internet searches, hashtags on social media, people running their mouths, a lot of people pay attention to anything at any given moment. So there's not a clear focus, and they believe anything that they see. And people are not reading real information. And so that's something that's the downfall, including with mental health and physical health. A lot of people are reading conspiracy theories regarding health issues, and that impacts substance use and the overdose deaths. So Black men in USA have had the highest incidence of overdose deaths since 2020. And some of that has been connected with a lot of people accessing a lot of substances through the internet, believing any kind of article that they found on the internet. And unfortunately, that's another connection there.
So I'll jump right in. I think I think it's important that we do define social media disorder. It's something that we're looking at currently in the research and trying to understand just the implications from it. And so the first thing I do want to mention is that social media disorder is something that research is starting to say falls into a behavioral addiction. So oftentimes when we think about the notion of addiction, it's often either chemical, behavioral, non-chemical. And so that's where research is starting to lend. But recognizing that, our level of engagement on social media directly impacts our executive functioning, right? And that's our ability to make decisions and have rational thoughts. And similar to what Dr. Dennis is saying, can play an even more instrumental role in aspects of addiction and emotional distress.
Absolutely. No, you all make some very, very good points. Now, I'm curious, it's kind of this idea of distress, and it's also this idea, like the topic is cognitive overload. So it's overloading. It's like, I remember when I first got Netflix, the thing about it was it's so many options to watch, so many options out there, so many things to do, so many things to watch. It messed me up a little bit because it was just, again, it was overload. It was too many options. In terms of social media, I think a lot of people may feel very much the same way. There's so many pictures, you're just scrolling. There's a phenomenon, they just call it dead scrolling. People literally just on their phone at night in bed, and they're just not even receiving any type of dopamine, whatever may have you. They're just scrolling through their phone. What do you think about the kind of this idea of overload? You're seeing just pictures. Social media is very visual. You're seeing nothing but pictures, pictures, pictures. This kind of comparison goes in your mind, maybe this person's lifestyle, this person's looks. How do you think that affects the psyche? I mean, for everyone here, how do you think that affects the psyche of a person, as they're just looking through these things and it's just overloading. We can start with you, Dr. Mitchell. Or we can go ahead, Dontay, we can start with you instead.
Oh yeah, no worries. I think as you were speaking, that the question that came to mind for me was, do I have an issue, right? I think that's what a lot of our viewers are looking to say, hey, is this a problem for me? So the first thing that really came to mind for me in the mental health field is that there are oftentimes really two criteria to say if this is actually meeting diagnostic criteria where I might seek a counselor and or a business coach and so forth. The first one is it causing me distress, right? At the end of the day, my life is great. Maybe I'm a social media influencer. I'm managing my finances. Life is, beautiful. Then it's not necessarily causing an issue, right, or a level of distress. And then the second one is it impacting my ability to function, right? Is it impacting, am I getting to work late because I'm checking the posts and the impressions and the likes, or is it impacting my relationship? And so these are some of the things I think that we begin to think about when we really explore just the impact of mental health it has on mental health.
Absolutely. Dr. Dennis, do you have a take on that as well?
Yes. So, as a sociologist and criminologist who specializes in the sociology of mental health and suicidology, I tell African/racially Black people to make sure to have consistent appointments with a therapist, a support group, a general doctor, neurologist, if you have a brain condition, gynecologist, dermatologist, the list goes on of all these different appointments, while also knowing how to be a knowledgeable, informed patient. So that's why I specialize in community patient advocacy, and I help people know how to research, and to sometimes I go to appointments with people to have informed dialogue. So one of the components of that is to not be reliant on diagnostical statistical model and diagnosis, because those are not based on our people in the first place. No matter how much that's revised and they create a Black version of DSM, it's the same as creating a Black version of body mass index. It's all going to still stick to this structure here. And we want our people to be informed so that we can make knowledgeable decisions and not always be relegated to what people tell us. So the same thing pertains to social media, and especially when people are having smartphones. And that's what people who specialize in sleep apnea explain as well. What does it mean when you're about to go to bed, you got to check your smartphone? Good and well, a lot of people who are proud that they put their phone on silent, they still check their smartphone to see what's on social media before they go to sleep. Then they wake up in the morning, and that really impacts not just people's sleep, but also people's perception of relevance. So I just explained to African/racially Black people that a lot of our people don't understand the relevance of lives, relevance of social justice issues for our own people, because we've been fed so much stuff that is on news stations, on social media, scrolling through. And I specialize in helping our people know to ignore 99% of the things that you're going to see, which means you got to stop looking at this stuff in the first place. I always recommend people not have much social media accounts in the first place. And I think that's a very good habit, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. You got to figure out what you want and realize all of these are the same. It can call itself a business networking site, but they're literally all the same. It's trolling, hacking, stalking, foolishness, even if you're wearing a suit. So I just always want African/racially Black people to understand that some things are just not that crucial, no matter how much people tell you it's crucial.
Yeah, Dr. Dennis, you make a really interesting point. You say really balancing. You think just the less is better in terms of social media. What do you think is some of the biggest, and this is an open question for anyone. I mean, what do you think, this idea of less is more with the social media, however, it's, again, we live in a world where it is so much, you kind of almost have to for even your job. Like for me, as someone that works as a journalist and anchor and in media, it is a part of, again, people really do look at that as your business card. Your mini CV is almost your reel is on Instagram, right? For you all, and again, this is an open-ended question, when does it become too much? How does one know when to even step away from it? I mean, how do you know when it's too much? What is too much apps? What is too little apps? I mean, really, how does someone kind of venture in this space to know what is healthy and what is not?
Well, I would love to speak on this question, and I really love all the responses, that the insights that you guys. I'm sorry, I'm a cheerleader in the back. I know you see my lips moving. I'm like, oh yeah, 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 that's right, that's right. Sorry, but I would say what I normally even tell like my business clients is when they're trying to get known on social media, that they should pick like a top three, and that top three should be connected to the type of business that they are running. For instance, I've had a construction client, and there's a social media, believe it or not, for construction workers to find gigs and jobs, work. And also, it would be like a LinkedIn, or maybe pretty much their audience. And so I really try to make sure that they are not doing too much. And that statement that they always say, or the phrase, less is more. The lesser of it, then the more impact that you would get for your business. Now, from a personal standpoint, I always start with business. I want to give some business tips out there. You should really think about the platforms where the use is going to be. I still have family members that are on Facebook because there is a family reunion, on both sides of my family. So for us to really have events there, we still use Facebook, right? And then if you want to do music, or you want to see some powerful things business wise, LinkedIn is good. TikTok also, and I think I said this before about the audience. You got to know the audience that you're trying to connect with. Your pieces, maybe you want to share something, your poetry of some sort. Instagram is good, TikTok is good. If you are an artist, think about how you want to connect to the people you want to get to. And I've always said that, there is no need to have 20 types of social media, because it's going to get out of hand, and it will definitely affect your emotion, right? And also your mental stability, as far as the things that are posted. I don't know if we talked about this yet, but things that are posted that can get anxiety for you. So definitely, I always say protect you and protect the ones that you love.
Yeah. I like to jump in and add to the conversation. I think part of the conversation, what we're talking about, is when is it too much? I'm going to tell you that I'm a proponent of not necessarily less is more, but what makes sense for you, right? As an individual, one thing I oftentimes talk about in the counseling process is that we're all human, right? We're supposed to be anxious. We're supposed to feel sad, right? And fear. But how do we find that particular balance, right? So for me, the first gauge of knowing when is it too much is it impacting me, right? Is it really causing a rupture within my family system, within my marriage, right? Even in my business? Are we really being productive? But what's most important, I do believe, is where do you spend your time, right? Because if we're engaging social media and we're looking at all the horrific videos, or we're looking at all the vacations, well, that's going to create an emotion inside of us, and then eventually lead to particular consequences. So I think it's first and foremost finding a level of honesty with yourself, right? Being able to say that, no, this isn't best for me. Listen, it has these negative consequences, and then really working to accept that as we move to change that behavior. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, what do you all think? Dr. Mitchell had brought up the idea of pulse. I mean, what do you think is the biggest thing affecting our community, Black face, in terms of what we're putting on social media, the way how we're handling social media. What do you think is the biggest issue that us as a community are facing? What do you see as something that we should improve upon? What do you think is something we should correct or fix? Dr. Dennis, please do take that one.
Well, it goes to what I said earlier, spending too much time on social media, taking things on the internet too seriously in the first place. So some of us do publish entire books and peer-reviewed journal articles on social media, because I do want our people to be able to contrast news articles, because I don't want our people to rely on news stations and government announcements around the world either. But I just don't want our people to be reliant on computers regardless. And that's whether it's a smartphone or PC. I want our people, and this is something that our Pan-African, Black nationalists, pro-Black, Black power organizations explain in a sense for centuries when we're talking about new inventions. What does it mean for our people to be prepared for the inventions, as well as being prepared for when the inventions disappear? If you became reliant on the inventions, that's the brainwashing that our people specifically, we can't control what everybody else does, but our people specifically have to be prepared for the inventions when they go wrong, because it will, and understand fact from fiction. That's one thing I tell students and in our communities as well. I don't say you can't have access to stuff. Part of freedom of our people is having access to falsehoods in books and foolishness on the internet. But knowledge means you can tell this ain't true. And I ain't gonna just follow behind it, because a whole bunch of people are following behind it. Also understand on social media, I cannot stand anonymity. So I'm not a fan of usernames where people are not using their own photos and their own names. And a lot of people's family members, friends, colleagues, famous people have anonymous usernames. I don't like that. I think it's a form of whatever excuse people use. I think it's a form of cowardly. And then a lot of accounts are blackface accounts as well. So our people need to understand, a lot of times you think you're having an in-depth discussion about Black nationalism, about fight the power, about our people, to a username that could be anyone around the world. And these are not bots. These are actually people who are not our people, who have figured out how to adopt our languages, how to adopt our persona. And they got you sending them direct messages, exchanging wasted time dialogue. So I really want our people to understand how this is another tactic also of centuries of brainwashing our people and wasting our people's time, so that we don't have the mental space, the physical space, and the overall time to actually do real life work for our people.
No, you bring up a really great point, this idea of you don't even know sometimes who you're talking to, and the black-facing, black-fishing. It's really a big thing that it could really possibly happen. Now, I kind of want to shift it to what is the really kind of, how does one really take social media and look at it in terms of the younger people in our community? There's so many conversations constantly about these images being promoted of perfection, aesthetics, all these things. I'm really focused on the mental health of the younger people in our community, let's say K through 12. And, when you're that young, your brain hasn't quite developed yet. Like Dr. Dennis said, it's easy to be fooled. A lot of kids are fooled by what they're reading, hearing, seeing on social media. They think it's real. How do you think what is the effect you all think is happening on our younger folks in our community? Dontay, we can start with you.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's becoming more clear and evident that the effect is that there's increased suicidality. There's a more wider, pervasive negative self-view of who we are, our self-image. And, I think as a mental health counselor, I've even seen it to the extent to where particular youth and even adults really create a fabricated life via social media, right? To where it becomes distorted, to where we're having relationships, right, with people who are not necessarily within our circle, and or creating characteristics. I think one of the biggest generational divides is that our older generation was used to living life in life. I remember particularly growing up in Philadelphia where, the street lights went off. We had to go inside, right? We played cops and robbers. So much of this is now translating into the social media life. And I think the one thing that I would recommend is that we get back to just everyday living, right? Taking that walk, learning to connect socially, learning the interpersonal skills to be more effective. And that social media can be an interesting platform, but we also must remember the human side of things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, you make a great point. Dr. Mitchell, would you like to add anything onto that? This idea of how social media is really affecting our younger generations?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that, just from what Dontay was sharing that I love to share with my students is that sometimes they're not able to balance what reality and what playfulness time is. And that can go for any age. Sorry. That can go for any age. Any age. And I think I just want them to remember that they do have an opportunity to play outside. It's still available to us, being on the playground, being amongst family at dinner time. I love cooking, and I think cooking, definitely can be an alternative to, some of the social media, downtime when you want that downtime. But I really do see our youth are constantly on it. I don't know if you've heard in the state of Florida, they actually have banned cell phones in the classrooms because there is this blurred line of balance. I'm so sorry. Oh, wow. Mute me there.
It's okay. Give us some music.
I think similar to what Dr. Mitchell was saying, it is very pervasive. A lot of research is out there looking at the impacts of social media in Chinese populations and just some of the larger governmental controls that are starting to be placed around it. One thing I quickly want to mention at Mental Health on Purpose, we partner with the Social Media Research Institute to really kind of examine the research and hopefully develop clinical assessment tools that counselors can use to determine the impact that social media is really having on the clients that we serve. But research is necessary as we look for evidence-based approaches.
Can I chime in?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I want our people to remember that young folks are doing what grown folks are doing. So specifically in our cultures around the world, we have a false tendency to pretend that new generations just imagined something and just created their own thing. We have to remember that when we talk about culture, and that's sociologically and anthropologically, culture is something that's seen, it's something that's heard, it's visual, it's all types of things. So the internet existed before these young folks were born. And these grown folks, and we talk about the role across income level as well, because we just have to understand that a lot of grown folks will pretend that they don't know how and why young folks have become reliant on social media and walk around with a smartphone. And smartphone access also includes when we're talking about tax-paid government assistance as well. So we just have to remember there's different steps to being controlled. That includes when you start being controlled by news outlets, older folks quoting. Did y'all not hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, when you're
Keep going. You're good. You're good now.
Oh, okay. of course the news outlets want to pause me when I say that. So when you're controlled by news outlets, that's an example of the stages of being controlled in terms of your mental state. And children start to learn when the adults in their family are controlled by the media, which includes news stations. So it's not shocking that every new technology starts to control every generation. So changes only happen when older folks stop pretending they don't know how younger folks started doing this. And we also, when we look at solutions, we want to make sure we don't use an ableist and a narrow family definition solution. So in terms of ableism, remember, there are people who cannot get out the house for various reasons. Could be physical conditions, mental conditions. That's why we have mental health professionals and physical health professionals who do virtual sessions or come to people's houses, right? And also for substance use. So we want people to have some real options, youth to have some real options beyond telling people, back in my day, we used to go out there and play on that metal monkey bars. People got to have some real options because not everybody has that for physical reasons, right? As for family stuff, not everyone has that family dynamic that our people tend to imagine. That's a very middle class version of Blackness that I need our people to understand. That's not meaning that every Black person has that. So not everyone has that family structure. No. There's people who are raised by their grandparents or raised by other elders, raised by their aunts, uncles. There's people who are homeless. Since I do help with people having government assistance, there are homeless people who have smartphones. So they live in shelters and they still have access to smartphones because that's paid through the government assistance. So we do want to expand our image that we have and not just tell people that this is what your family should do, this is what you should do. We want to expand in terms of why people are doing what they're doing in the first place.
Absolutely, Dr. Dennis, and you make such a great point. This is not something that's new. Social media has been around longer than this quote unquote younger generation has even known about. Before TikTok, I mean, like you all said, someone had mentioned in the comments, Black Planet back in the day. That was a social media space for Black people, by Black people. AOL, I mean, like all these types of things, now bringing it back to kind of our mental health. I mean, and I want to say too, with us as a community, we've seen social media also do some very positive things. The Black Lives Matter movement, I mean, that whole revolution call for justice, call for change, call for political climate change started on social media in a lot of ways. And in the same breath, I'm sure there were some people that were learning quite a bit, maybe even using some, even though we know police murders of Black people, Black and brown people have gone on from the beginning of time, people were actually able to document some of these things that are now, now to for the whole world to see in maybe a different way. Maybe this footage was circulated even faster, and I'm just curious from you all's perspective, what do you think are some positive things in the same breath that social media has been able to do? Start with you, Dontay.
Yeah, I want to jump back quickly to something that Dr. Dennis mentioned, and it's just the idea that, the internet is not new, social media is not necessarily new. One thing that I do believe is new, and it's getting, I think, into what you described, is the access, right? So a lot of the things that we've experienced in life, from trauma, right, events, what happens in this house stays in this house. Well, now the light is kind of being shined on that. And what I really believe social media is doing is it's creating an existential question, right? Like, why am I here? What is my intention? What is my purpose? As we start to grapple with the realities of the harshness of this world, right? And so I just want to kind of point that out. I think that is the new concept, is that we're being exposed to so much information, whereas before they were secrets, and it's promoting an existential crisis. I also believe that it can be a beneficial thing. For me, when I need that one Amazon gift, I can type it in real fast, and then I'm going to get a whole lot
Yeah.
of advertisements and hopefully the best product. My hope is that we see social media as a tool that we can utilize ultimately to enhance our experiences. And it can be that, it's a good point for connection, in social groups, fraternities, sororities, organizations, just having a place to where we can kind of chat, right, and talk about the things that are happening. So it's not necessarily all bad. There are some new things that are happening, but ultimately, I believe that if we come together collectively, we can use it for positive.
Now, Dr. Dents, I really want to hear your opinion on that. What positive do you think, if you think there's any, or maybe you don't think there's any, what positive do you think social media could bring to people?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Dontay just said. There are some positive connections. The problem is, as Flavor Flav said, Public Enemy, don't believe the hype. The problem is when social media becomes the voice. Like, if social media is the first time Black folks know Black Lives Matter, and instead of the focus being an internal change for our people, it's convincing the world through social media that we matter, that's missing the point. And this is what Black radicals and Black revolutionary folks have explained for centuries. If we're connected with each other, you can't then change the focus to now convincing outsiders that you matter. So the good thing was getting our people to yell and say, yo. The bad thing is that, unfortunately, the old Black folk and the young Black folk missed the point, and they turned the focus into telling outsiders that, hey, we matter. That was not supposed to be the outcome there. If we're talking about addressing issues of Black violence, including domestic violence, sexual assault, and rape, it's increasing attention, including the published books and the research and the data. So getting our people to know this information is available and that there are community resources to help our people. That's very important. We want our people to know that you don't have to want to discuss this anywhere, including on social media, but we want people to have access to these resources. So I do appreciate the way that social media has provided outlets. And social media does have some fun spaces. It's just, again, if folks can only find you on social media, I think, again, that's a time where people need to self-reflect. Like if your family don't want to talk to you until they respond to your post, then I think that's just a time for people to reflect. That's the prevalence of social media that needs to be changed in that sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, Dr. Dennis, you make a great point. If the only time people are checking for you is when you post something real cute or something real nice, that's a problem. Let me go ahead and read some of these comments right here. Queen Entrance, she says, social media helped yoga find me and help my healing journey. And Smiley Forever 66, they say something really interesting right there. They say, with those who can't physically get around for various reasons, social media interaction is their main connection. When used wisely and responsibly, it can definitely remove certain barriers. So obviously we see kind of these different viewpoints on the connective quality of positive relationships on social media. You know what? But I think, again, you all make such great points. Now, I think this is another question to ask too. How much, can we really be ourselves online? We see all these different perspectives, maybe access to barriers. Some people have extreme social anxiety, different physical, mental, psychological barriers, which, counteract them from really being able to be themselves in real life, person to person. What is kind of your all's take, our mental health and being ourselves online? Can you even be yourself online? Is that even psychologically and mentally possible? What are y'all's takes on that? Dr. Mitchell, if you'd like to join us, would you like to add in there?
Sure. Wow. When I hear this question, you know, in just the spaces for um, Black and brown, particularly just in a workspace, and now we're talking about it on social media, being your real self, right? Um, I say that you may have to tread a little bit. And when I say tread, you may have to, what I call this marketing term, you may have to drip pieces of you. Sometimes it may not be as welcoming to be your authentic self. And some people have, unfortunately, went through I'm gonna say go through the trenches of being their real self and then get a backlash. And it's sad that we have to, kind of tread on water to make others comfortable with who you really are. But again, and I think Dontay had said this earlier, where, it's really catered to the person itself too. But I know in certain cases you may have to tread just to be your authentic self. And it shouldn't be that way, but you do want to add positivity. Now, I do always say, you want to be a positive person online, not to add any negativity. And so one of the things I've tried to do over the years with social media for myself is to add like positive quotes in the morning, what you should be grateful for. So I try to send out like little quotes, just to brighten somebody's day, right? And I think that would be something, again, that you would have to measure with yourself of how comfortable you will feel. Because also, if you're a celebrity, I heard Dr. Dennis talk about being a celebrity. Some of them are not true authentic themselves, right? They put alternative names. I call it that. I give a little spin to it, Dr. Dennis. Give an alternative name. And you just have to be mindful that not everybody on social media are as positive as you. And I'm going to leave it as that.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think oh, go ahead. I just want to say, I think that this is absolutely the time to be authentic. I think as we oftentimes look at what is relatable, how are we connecting, right? I think it's through that authenticity. So being able to come to platforms such as this and talk about my MySpace experience, right? And so I think first and foremost, you have to ask yourself, what is my goal with social media, right? If I'm there for business and I want to promote business and positivity so that I can attract people to come and receive a service that I believe is going to be transformative, then I say live that out on social media, but then also find ways to be authentic. I think that is essential in this time. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Dennis, would you like to add anything in there?
Yeah, I will just say, generally speaking, most people don't know what it feels like to be themselves in general.
Yeah.
And that's the learned behavior of humans since the origin of the humans. And so there's various spaces, which is another issue regarding just the reality of being alive, which is why a lot of people I think everyone should get help. I think everyone should have someone with whom you can be around and you can say wrong things without being stigmatized. You can say stupid things without being stigmatized. But 99% of people since the origins of humans have never had those kinds of environments. I really believe that social media makes that worse, because now they're putting something on this spot here where don't nobody know them for real. And all they see is this. And those of us who do social justice work, and my work is based on 5 centuries of what Africans have done regarding racial justice. It ain't based on this new DEI, D&I stuff. So people who don't know real African/Black work will be outright outraged, including our own people. And what they do is they do screenshots. Pshum. They don't care about facts,
Mm.
right? So I just want our people to understand that this is all just a component of the socialization of humans. And you take from it what you will. People will respond to you in all types of ways because people don't have access to factual information a lot of times. They see what they see on that screen. Most people do not read, and this includes most people who are in college. This includes most people who can have access to books. They don't read. They don't have environments where they can discuss factual information. So having this access to social media, they see something on their screen, and a lot of times they're not going to do a follow-up. They're just going to go out. Sham. That's the hashtag. You know, everything's all over the place. And so sociologically, it's just, that's why I just really want people to understand how to put this in its level. And that includes our people who have businesses. I want our people to process, what is your business doing? If you claim your business is invested in the justice for our people, I need you to redesign to whom are you advertising yourself and how you're presenting yourself. Because you can't present yourself to other people to impress them on the backs of your own people and claim you're helping us.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for that, Dr. Dennis. You know what? It's also, how does one, how does one then practice, let's say, social media self-care? How does one really take care of themselves online, in terms of their mental health? You made such a great point, Dontay. Know your goal for social media. But it's like, goal reaching just in life, period. It's an uphill battle. It's definitely a climb. It's definitely a journey. How do you practice that self-care? I mean, comment sections can be brutal. Direct messages, people can be very brutal. If you're showing any part of business, whatever you're showing online, how do you all think, how can we really all practice social media self-care? Anyone can go first for that.
I'm gonna just say, I don't know why y'all keep having y'all comments on and your direct messages on. I don't allow people to add comments and send me direct messages if I don't know them. Again, those of us who are doing real work in communities and real work to reach and help our people, we know that there's not going to be approval and content from outsiders. So I don't care about their opinions. I don't need their feedback. And people who really want to holler at me and have some real productive interactions know how to contact me offline. So my comments are always closed. There's no comments. So whenever people say Dr. Dennis does not care about debate and stuff like that, well, because that's the wonderful thing about being Africans. Not everything is up for debate. And we're the only people around the world who keep being told that everything has to be up for the discussion and debate. We ain't never going to get nowhere as a people. There's never going to be a revolution for our people because we have been brainwashed to think that everything is up for discussion and debate. So on social media, there's no comment section. And people who know me know how to find me and holler at me. People who don't want to know me and they want to harass me, I mean, ain't nobody gonna protect me from them. So I'm gonna open my comments and my direct messages for them because ain't nobody gonna protect me from that. So I really encourage our people who are doing real work, and I keep repeating this to our people everywhere I am, including in classrooms. If you're doing real work, and making money does not mean you're doing real work, because paying your bills is another form of harming your people for revenue. You can't blame outsiders for our people being harmed when that's what you're doing your doggone self. So if you're doing real work to help our people, because after you're dead and gone, you have to lay a foundation for future generations of our people beyond paying your bills. So if you're doing real work, you don't need to care if your comment section is open and your direct messages are open to outsiders. You can't keep this open anywhere, including on social media, and then act hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray when outsiders harass you in comment section and DM. They harass us in board meetings. They harass us in classrooms. They harass us everywhere. You think social media is going to be some kind of revelation? I need Black folks to stop this nonsense. And those who insist on not stopping the nonsense, realize that unless you're the 1% of Black folks who are famous and New York Times bestseller, don't nobody care about anybody harassing you anywhere, including on social media.
Yeah,
I would like to. Oh, we both chiming in. Go ahead.
No worries. I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, with this powerful question, I do want to give, I'm going to give my business background here. I always tell, the business clients and my students too, is that you need to set boundaries. So let's establish these clear limits on your social media usage and determining, like specific times of the day. I remember, back in the day when it was this little tool that I would let my small businesses use, where you can put in 4 of your social medias and you set the timer of when you wanted it to go out, so that the people that you wanted to talk to and get those comments, I'm sorry, Dr. Dennis, we're going to get some comments on this one, and just really put that boundary of allowing it to be back on you and to get those the feedback that you're looking for with those extended periods. Let's just say you want to do a lunch and learn topic, have it set up to do that. And then when you're talking about the self-care of prioritizing your self-care activities. So you want to allocate for those activities that promote this well-being, such as exercise. And y'all know I talked about my little recipes. I love to cook. Set that up so that you can do things with your loved ones. Being that, when I took the rams of you inviting me here today about mental health, I've lost a ton of family members over these past 5 years. You need to spend time with your loved ones instead of being online, because as Dr. Dennis has said, they don't care. They don't love you like your loved ones. And when they're gone, right? So you want to make self-care a priority and avoid those micro belittling social media attempts. And then last, and I know people are not going to want to hear this one, but I got to put my digital mind on it here. Y'all know I'm a computer science fanatic, but you got to digitally detox. That is what I call it. Just like we detox for help, you need to digitally detox to set yourself aside. I have some wonderful people in the community where every year, it may be over the 12 months, or you can do it, just set a time where it's like, okay, you know what? I've been on this particular social media for a certain period of time. I think, maybe it's time for you to retire that particular social media, but definitely a digital detox at the beginning of the year, where we set our visions, our goals at the beginning. Let's do a digital detox. Let's do it for 30 days. Let's see how you make it. If it's 90 days, they say, 90 days will definitely create a good habit. But I would think that would be a part of a good self-care and just being mindful, taking you into your future destiny without any, what I call, bricks and barriers going down on your mental state.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll jump in quickly and just add, I think as we contemplate social media, its involvement, our engagement, I want to encourage people to set intentionalities or to set intentions. Oftentimes we set boundaries and what we're not going to do and all of that great stuff. And I think that that's a positive thing. But let's just be more intentional. When I choose to engage social media, what are my intentions in that moment? maybe I just need that like, maybe I need to see what my friends are doing and the last vacation, and that's exciting for me, right? But being intentional each time that we use social media. I think it can be a powerful tool. One thing that we talk about in mental health and counseling is opposite to emotions. So if I'm feeling really down and depressed, hey, listen, I can use social media to find that funny video or that meme to kind of lift my mood, right? If I'm feeling anxious, maybe I need to watch something a little bit more calming, relaxing. And so, again, it goes back to just the intentionality. And then the last two things I would say is make it work for you. At the end of the day, regardless of what it is that we're employing, what it is that we're using, just make sure that it's really working for you. And then the last thing I would say is just to breathe. you know, there's so much happening in the
Yeah,
world, so much going on, there's so much things happening. I just want to encourage us to breathe and listen. It's going to be all right. I believe it to be true.
absolutely. Thank you so much for that, for all of you. Perfect, and yes, all great, great perspectives. And now as we're wrapping up, you all have brought such very interesting, I mean, charming things and just very good knowledge to this space in terms of social media and our mental health. As our last question, I really want to know what is this? What do you see the future being for social media and mental health? What do you think is the future looking like in terms of that? How do we prepare for that? How do we come together to, work to make this a healthy space, keeping those boundaries? What do you think the future holds for all of us in social media and mental health? Dr. Dennis, we can start with you.
Like to hear, here it go. All right. The future is waste of time. And I've spent years challenging medical and health professionals on social media, because if you go based on their stories on social media, you will believe that most medical and health professionals know equity in health, and they reach Black folks and they know how to reach Black folks. And that is a misrepresentation of what is really happening in medical and health academic programs and in medical and health industries. So I truly believe that social media platforms will get worse in terms of people overestimating the need to form these collectives on social media for people who actually have real life collectives. Because again, we're talking about, I do believe that people with certain health conditions and disabilities should have access to this. I do believe that people with certain collectives who need social media should use it. But I also believe that there are people, and I always tell people, whether you're a teacher, school administrator, politician, or medical health professional, they use social media to depict themselves in a way that's completely different than how they're doing in real life. So you're believing their story just like you would if you watch it on MSNBC, CNN, so that in real life, they're telling you that your complaints are your imagination. Look at how happy we are on social media. We're fighting for justice on Twitter. Y'all ain't see us go back and forth with them hashtags? That's the brainwashing, right? I think it's really, really, really going to get worse. I love detoxing from social media. I do it every week, and I can't do it too long because I believe in deactivating all of it. Honestly, people keep telling me to be on social media, but I would deactivate all of it. But I'm told that that's how I have to interact with humans. So, and I do have epilepsy. I have a brain condition. So actually, those with the brain condition should not be on the internet this much, right? So yeah, I really believe in social media getting worse. You can call me negative Nuru. I always call myself that, but I'm not psychic. But I tell y'all, in 5 years, don't call me talking about you was right, because I know I was. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. All right, Dr. Dennis, thank you so much. Dr. Mitchell, last words on that. What is the future? What's the future hold?
Well, I would say that the future is going to be like augmentation and virtual reality, is definitely going to heighten, but also the privacy and security, that's my computer science brain working here, is definitely going to be something as well. That is definitely going to be a concern. But, social media is going to evolve. And as we've seen, I don't know, you can research this. They have this statistical data of how social media evolved, and it's actually fun to watch when you see it from the 90s until now. And it shows who was on top and who was on the bottom, who was this, and it goes back and forth, where it was like YouTube, Twitter, everything, right? And we're going to see something new. There's going to be, TikTok is not going to be the one that's on top. Twitter's not going to be there. Instagram, all these that we have that are number one. I don't know if y'all know this, but 930 billion people are on LinkedIn. So that social media is very, very top. But soon enough, 5 to 10 years, we're going to hear another social media phase that's going to come about. But the one thing that I will say with this question is that, again, I have to ride on the back of Dontay there. Which one is going to be suitable for you? And what intentional social media do you really need?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think that I was going to be the positive voice on social media, but nonetheless, I'll give it my best. I honestly believe as we contemplate, I honestly believe as we contemplate the future of social media, it will be what we allow it to be. Within our particular spaces. I think one thing that is evident is that it will be around, as much as we may disagree, recognize the consequences, the potential pitfalls. It is something that has integrated itself really within our culture. I'm just encouraged, for me in particular, as I think about social media, I look at what we're doing here today and how we're having a conversation around the positives, the negatives, the influences of our generation, and how it informs who we are today. So I'm encouraged as I look at the bigger picture of social media in creating spaces for tough conversations such as this. So yeah, that's my view, and I look forward to engaging and interacting as we continue the process. But thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you all. Such interesting perspectives. The future is looking bright, dark, depending on where you're coming from on the spectrum. But again, thank you all so much for being on the panel today. There was such a breadth of just knowledge, experience, and really great anecdotes. We really appreciate it. You know what? We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna give you all a chance to shout out your social media tags, your tags, any websites, so people can best seek your knowledge, find out what you all do, any type of website, any type of way to reach you all to, try to get your services, all that good stuff. Dr. Mitchell, we'll start with you.
Well, Dr. Dennis, as you say, I'm not on all social medias now. I'm only on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You definitely can find me with SCORE if you are looking to change your business, find a business. I'm your mentor. I can help you with that. And you can also look to find me on Learning Minds Consultant. I do a lot of consultant work as well.
I'll jump in. So I'm on social media.
Oh, we are.
Oh, I think we're cutting out for a moment. But yeah, so my name is Dontay Williams.
Go ahead. I was freezing.
Dontay Williams, definitely can find me on LinkedIn. My name is spelled a little bit different. I also want to encourage people to check out our website, mentalhealthonpurpose.com. We're really committing ourselves as an organization to providing direct counseling services. Also being an advocate, so being a part of these global conversations around mental health. And then lastly, professional development and consultation within the workplace. So check out our website, mentalhealthonpurpose.com. Google me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect. But yeah, that's how you can kind of find and track some of the work that we're doing.
Thank you so much, Dontay.
All right.
Let's see. Dr. Dennis, please.
All right. So the best way to learn about me, I want people to learn about me before they think they're reaching me, is to read information on my link tree, to go to my website also. So my website is 365diversity.com. I want our people to understand that diversity does not mean the nonsense that you've been told in the last 10 years. I want our people to read my link tree, which is Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. You can find me posting my community work and other writings on Instagram and TikTok. I still don't understand TikTok, but I do post there stuff from Instagram. I'm only back on LinkedIn in response to when LinkedIn banned me in 2020, when white people complained about my racial justice posts. So I'm staunchly opposed to LinkedIn. So don't try to reach me there. Go to my link tree and my website.
Okay. All right, everyone, please. Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much, Dr. Dennis. And thank you so much, everyone. This was such an informative session. Y'all, please reach out to these folks, find out what they're about. And if you need these services or any type of help or like what they have to say, please go check out their stuff. And thank you all for tuning in to Black Mental Health Matters. Now, to support our show, please visit bmhm.org. Again, that's bmhm.org for the latest conversations on Black mental health. Please join us next week. Same time, same place. I'm Amanda Eke. Thank you all so much.